The Chinese military sent patrols in the South China Sea as the U.S. and Philippines held their second joint military exercise in less than 2 months in the disputed waters. The Southern Theater Command said it had dispatched sea and air forces to the East Sea to patrol to monitor disturbance activities in the area. The patrol took place from January 3 to 4. The same time the U.S. and the Philippines conducted a 2-day joint exercise in this sea. This is the second time in 2 months that the two allied countries have conducted joint exercises, amid increased tensions between Manila and Beijing at sea. Last week, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken reaffirmed Washington's commitment to Manila in a phone call with his Philippine counterpart Enrique Manalo. Philippine news network GMA reported that China sent a Type 052D missile destroyer and a Type 054A cruiser to follow U.S. and Philippine forces on January 3. A Philippine ship issued warnings 5 times, but received no response from the Chinese ship, the report said. The Philippine military said it sent 2 helicopters and 4 ships, while the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command sent many aircraft and 4 warships, including an aircraft carrier and a missile cruiser. And 2 destroyers of the 1st Carrier Strike Group, participating in the exercise. Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces of the Philippines Romeo Brawner affirmed that the joint exercise with the U.S. marked a significant step forward in the alliance relationship and the level of interaction between the two forces. Our alliance is stronger than ever, sending a message to the world. We are promoting the rules-based international order and an open and free Indo-Pacific region in the face of regional challenges, the Philippine military statement quoted Mr. Brawner as saying. On January 3, the Philippines announced that it would send more military assets to Scarborough Beach, a few days after China warned of a resolute response after the Philippine Congress approved a budget to build a resolute response Permanent structure on a disputed structure. The U.S., Japan, Philippines move towards a trilateral security association. The U.S., Japan, Philippines are trying to establish a trilateral security link to deal with tensions in the East and East China Seas. Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida's visit to the Philippines in early November not only focused on strengthening bilateral relations between Japan and the Philippines but also contributed to promoting the trilateral link between the U.S., Japan, Philippines. Speaking before the Philippine Congress on November 4, Prime Minister Kishida said that Japan, the Philippines, and the United States are cooperating to protect freedom in the East Sea. Mr. Kishida also pledged to help Manila strengthen its security capabilities. According to Reuters news agency, increased tripartite security links. In fact, the U.S., Japan and the Philippines have recently interacted to tighten the trilateral connection, especially in security issues. In September, on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly, the foreign ministers of the United States, Japan and the Philippines held the second trilateral meeting, according to the Philippine news agency, PNA. At the meeting, 3 senior diplomatic officials agreed to develop a work plan to promote trilateral cooperation, including maritime domain awareness, humanitarian assistance and natural disaster relief. I think all 3 countries strongly believe that our cooperation, not only on a bilateral basis but on a trilateral basis, can bring very positive benefits not only to our countries but also for other countries and partners in the region and beyond, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said. In June, the National Security Advisors of the U.S., Japan and the Philippines held the first trilateral dialogue in Tokyo, Japan, and agreed to strengthen defense cooperation, according to ABC News. The joint statement after the meeting emphasized the importance of strengthening trilateral cooperation and response capabilities based on the U.S., Japan and U.S., Philippines alliances to maintain peace and stability in the Indian Ocean region, Pacific. In May, at the White House, U.S. President Joe Biden and Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. also agreed to establish trilateral cooperation methods with Japan. On the ground, cooperation between the U.S., Japan and the Philippines is also expanding. In March, Japan became an observer in U.S.-Philippine military exercises. In June, the U.S., Japanese and Philippine Coast Guards held their first joint maritime exercise off the coast of Bataan Province in the Philippines. In addition, the Philippines is strengthening and expanding bilateral security cooperation with both the US and Japan. Earlier this year, the Philippines announced 4 additional military bases that it would allow U.S. troops access to under the 2014 Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, EDCA, bringing the total number of bases to which the U.S. is currently authorized. Approaching 9. In September, Washington and Manila defense officials discussed allowing the U.S. military access to more Philippine military bases. During his visit to Manila last week, the Japanese Prime Minister pledged to provide a coastal surveillance radar system to the Philippines under the new Official Security Assistance, OSA, according to Kyodo News Agency. Mr. Kishida and Mr. Marcos also agreed to begin negotiations on a reciprocal access agreement, RAA, to strengthen security ties and facilitate joint defense exercises. Increasing tension in the seas, the US, Japan, Philippines have moved to form a trilateral security connection in the context of increasing regional tensions, especially in the East Sea and East China Sea regions, according to observers. In the East Sea, tensions have continuously escalated between the Philippines and China, in recent months. In October, there was a collision between a Chinese ship and a Philippine ship on a mission to supply the wreck of the warship BRP Sierra Madre stuck in Co May Bank, in Vietnam's Truong Sa archipelago, according to DW. The Philippine side accused the Chinese Coast Guard of provocative, irresponsible and illegal actions that endangered the safety of the ship's crew. Beijing confirmed that there was a slight collision between the Chinese ship and the Philippine ship after the Philippine ship ignored many warnings and deliberately bypassed law enforcement in an unprofessional and dangerous manner. Philippine Defense Secretary Gilberto Teodoro expects a joint exercise between the Philippine and Japanese militaries under the Reciprocal Access Agreement, RAA, could be held as early as next year, according to Kyodo News. At the end of last month, China accused a Philippine ship of illegally entering waters near Scarborough Shoal without permission from Beijing. Manila said that the Philippine ship routinely patrolled around Scarborough Shoal and did not illegally violate any space belonging to China's sovereignty. The Philippines also called on Beijing to act responsibly and end its aggressive and illegal actions in Philippine waters. In the East China Sea, tensions between Japan and China over the 2 disputed islands, Senkaku as Japan calls it, Diaoyu as China calls it, currently controlled by Japan, have also heated up recently. In early November, the 2 sides accused each other of sending ships to this disputed area and both affirmed that they would chase enemy ships out of the area, according to the South China Morning Post. A report in February by the Center for Strategic and International Studies, SIS, U.S., International Affairs Research, stated that the Philippines, Japan, and the U.S. have no viable strategy to deal with the action of Beijing in the East and South China Seas without strong trilateral cooperation. In an article in War on the Rocks magazine, Mr. Ryan Ashley, U.S. Air Force intelligence official, also said that a balanced trilateral security relationship between the U.S., Japan, Philippines can resolve concerns on the above-mentioned common security in the East China Sea and the East Sea. Our video ends here. Remember to subscribe so we can meet again in the next video. Goodbye everyone.